Here we go with the Sunday Superlatives again, presented by Accenture. AFC edition, go.
Okay. Well, we got Ravens-Broncos, right? That's the first game. And mine will be MVP 3, as in a question mark, because Lamar Jackson is the MVP of football right now. The Ravens are the best offense in football and look unstoppable on that side of the football. And then, I mean, you take Lamar and what he did last year and won the MVP, this year blows it out of the water. I mean, to me, it's not even close. The Baltimore Ravens and their offense and all they do, and Todd Monken and what is created there, and how much better Lamar Jackson is in all phases, in the pocket, against the blitz, knowing where to go in those type of situations, taking care of the football, truly playing phenomenal right now. I mean, you see on-rhythm throws like this down the middle of the field. And again, like the Detroit Lions too, he doesn't even have to be Superman all the time right now because they're so good and they're functioning on such a high level with all the receivers, the Derrick Henry at running back, the tight ends and all that. They got it going. That was kind of a crazy game. Yeah, I want to ask you this because we both respect Denver. I thought they would keep it closer than that.
We both did too.
Right. And well, they had opportunities. Were they too aggressive early on in the game? I mean, first off, Bo Nix gets unlucky and interception on the first play where it probably should have been a completion, excuse me. Ball kind of goes through the guy. But if you remember, they had the fourth down around midfield early on in the football game. They go for it. They didn't get it when he pitched the ball to the running back. They had the other fourth down. He missed a wide open touchdown on fourth down early on in the football game that really would have put pressure on the Ravens. Were they a little too aggressive in that environment? Should they have played through their defense more? That was the one thing that kind of jumped out to me watching the game.
I think the key is this.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it close, don't be aggressive. If you want to win the game,
you got to be aggressive. Okay. I hear you there.
One of the things that dawned on me before that game started, we have seen good teams go into Baltimore and just get dismantled.
Yeah.
The Lions last year.
Yes.
Ugly.
Right.
Ugly. And so it can happen. And something I said last night on the FNIA podcast that we do, the Ravens gave us a glimpse of what they can be when it all works.
Exactly.
The problem is they're prone to, oops,
right.
Not today, and they lose at home to the Raiders.
Well, it's
oops,
their defense.
Not today, and they lose at home in the playoffs.
Right.
That's the problem. Like with the Lions, I feel like you can take to the bank that they're going to be the same team every week, and they're going to carry it through the postseason. With the Ravens, you kind of have to sit back and hold your breath. Okay, which Ravens? Is it going to be Ravens firing on all cylinders, complete team, or is it going to be Ravens falling apart in one phase or more than one phase? That's what still concerns me about that.
I agree. That's the question. The offense isn't going to fall apart. We don't have to worry about that. It's just, can the defense keep up? And again, the game, they clearly were the better team. I get that. Denver's got to be disappointed with the way their defense have played a little bit. I mean, it's 17-10 with how much time left in the first half? 54 seconds. And they let a two-play 70-yard drive to go down and score 24-10 before the half. That kind of took the wind out of the sails of the Denver Broncos. But they're that explosive, to your point. The defense is going to be the big question. Because, there were some opportunities early in this football game where you went, ooh, Denver could have made a play or two and probably made this a different type of football game altogether. But rookie quarterback on the road, tough place to play. Baltimore was pissed off after losing last week yesterday. They were ready to go, and Lamar and that offense they're on fire right now.
We'll pivot to Bills-Dolphins. For me, it's the short memory award for Tyler Bass and his kicking of a 61-yard field goal, despite having a rough day, that had people thinking, hey, the Bills are going to have kicker tryouts this week. I mean, we all get the sense of when it's time to see what else is out there. He's struggled this year, and he nails that 61-yarder, and I talked to him after the game, and he credited his late kicking coach, Doc Spurgeon, for telling him you're only as good as your next kick. Not your last kick, your next kick. And that 61-yarder,
he crushed it.
That goes a long way toward erasing any and all doubts that might have been lingering. And that was a huge game because for the Dolphins, that's the season. There goes, in that 61-yard field goal, there goes Miami's season. Now, it's not impossible that they won't get hot and get a wild card berth, but they're not winning the division.
No.
If they wanted to have any chance at the division, the only way the Bills are blowing that division is if they have the kind of collapse that gets everybody fired.
Right. I don't see that happening. I think the Bills are as good as they've been since the year they lost that shootout in the divisional 13 seconds left game, right? Yeah. I have a different feel for the Bills as compared to the last 2 years. It's definitely not as Josh Allen-centric. We know that. They are tougher. Their O-line's good. When Amari Cooper's in there, we've seen that can open up the offense.
And he wasn't yesterday.
And he wasn't. They still got it done.
James Cook didn't have a big day.
No.
It felt like, you can tell a great team because when it feels like most of the game they should lose.
Yeah, they didn't have their fastball yet.
And then all of a sudden they win.
They still find a way
that's
to get
what
it
you
done.
do. That's a team that you need to reckon with because other teams, when it's not their day, it's an L.
Yeah.
The Bills find a way to win,
They're
especially
tough.
yesterday. In a critical game for the Dolphins, they found a way to knock them out when they had the chance.
McDermott's tough. They're tough-minded that way. And then, of course, when you got him at quarterback and you get him down near the red zone or anything like that, Josh Allen, he's going to score touchdowns. I will say this one thing before we move on, too. I do think it's interesting with the Dolphins and kind of what they're doing. We've made fun of Tua for throwing the ball short, right, in the past. They're throwing it even shorter now. Ever since he's come back from injury, it is run on the edge, screen, quick pass, boom, 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 boom. And they kind of tried to spread you out horizontally. And then they got into the third quarter, and then they were like, finally, the Bills were like, okay, we've been playing these soft zones, trying to take away Waddle and Tyreek Hill. We got to move up to stop the run game and all these little quick behind the line of scrimmage short passes. Then they hit Waddle and Tyreek Hill behind it. But it looks like that's going to kind of be their approach, and I give Mike McDaniel credit for staying patient with the run yesterday. Dolphins played tough football yesterday. Like you said, they could have won that game. But damn, they got to go on a run now. I mean, they basically got to go undefeated or maybe like only can lose one game here for the rest of the way, maybe two to even get in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it starts with one win, and one becomes two, and one win can change the entire vibe. Look at what it did for the Jets on Thursday night. But still, you got to get one. And this team, even with Tua back, we thought Tua would be the savior, and they're 0-2 with Tua back. All right, Bengals, Raiders. What do you got?
5 boroughs, baby. 5 boroughs. Can you name the 5 boroughs? Can you name them off the top of your head? Let's see if you can do it.
Brooklyn.
Yep.
Manhattan.
Right.
Bronx.
Right.
Queens.
Right.
Staten Island.
Okay, way to go, kid. Way to go.
I've been coming here every
I
weekend for
I just
15
wanted to put
years
you to the
now.
test. I thought maybe you'd choke under the pressure, okay? Way to go. Good job there. Yeah, I mean, 5 TDs by Joe Burrow, almost 6, really. They tried to get another one late. But, yeah, Burrow. Hey, the two hottest quarterbacks in football right now are Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. They're going to face off on Thursday night. Joe Burrow, if they're 6-3 or something like that right now, it's him and Lamar Jackson in the MVP conversation. But he was on his game. He's been on his game. And I think they know they got to be on their game on the offensive side of the ball. They got to score 30 points because their defense is just not good. So they come into the game with those type of expectations. That slippery SOB, Joe Burrow. Like I talked about, moving in the pocket, subtle movement, staying in the throwing position. I mean, he's like the guy you want to show young kids to go, hey, this is the proper way to do stuff. Put it on a quarterback reel. Let's start there, and then maybe you can start doing Mahomes and Josh Allen stuff, right? But he's so amazing that way. I always say this, and I know you've heard me say this. When you play zone defense, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in football. He moves people. He's so quick to see things, kind of like we talked about with Kirk Cousins. He was on fire, on point yesterday. I'm excited for that Thursday game because, as we just talked about, Baltimore's defense is not good, and we know the Bengals can move the ball on them. We saw that a few weeks ago when they probably should have beat Baltimore.
It was a Thursday night game in November last year between the Bengals and the Ravens in Baltimore that resulted in that wrist injury that ended the season. But that is a huge game now because the Bengals trying to not just take out the bad teams.
Yeah.
And that whole 5 boroughs thing, it reminded me of something that confused the hell out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Remember the show Welcome Back, Kotter? That was before you were born.
I do.
But you've heard of it. Vinny Barbarino,
right.
John Travolta.
Right.
In the opening credits, they would show a sign because it was set in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it said, Brooklyn, welcome to Brooklyn, 4th largest city in America.
Yeah.
And I was always confused. It's like, wait a minute, Brooklyn's part of New York. Is Brooklyn someplace different? And what is the Bronx? What's this Bronx with the X on the end of it? And what about Queens? That's where Archie Bunker is. I was always confused about this whole thing.
I think they've stopped saying that. But, yes, technically, Brooklyn is its own city. And I do think it's still the 4th biggest city in America, even though it's literally 100 yards from the biggest city in our country in New York City.
But it's still part of New York City.
It's still part of New York City, right?
I was very confused. You brought back that memory.
It's still confusing. I still don't even know, and I lived here my whole life.
Here's something confusing. The Las Vegas Raiders overnight fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, along with offensive line coach James Craig and quarterback coach Rich Scangarello. Whew. Is anybody left? Who takes over?
I don't know. We're going to start.
Tom Brady going to show up and run the offense?
Family members. Hey, I need you to come in here and help out.
I wonder how much Tom was involved. And, this is the whole split personality of being the top Fox broadcaster and an owner of the Raiders. As he's working that game, is he getting text messages from Mark Davis after they lose to the Bengals saying, I really got to make a change here. What should I do? Or Antonio Pierce, hey, I'm thinking about firing Luke Getsy. What do you think?
It feels like an emotional decision.
It's weird.
I mean, I would if Tom Brady was part of ownership, I would always want to know his opinion and all this.
Right, but that's what I'm thinking. Think about this.
Right.
He's working the Lions-Packers game at Lambeau Field, and in the breaks, he's potentially looking at his phone. He's got a text from people saying, hey, so when should we do this? Or who should go with him? Or who's going to take his place? Like, you would want his input. And he's working a game.
But I would think a guy like Tom Brady would be texting back going, what? Why are we firing all these people? We stink on offense no matter what. I don't care if we bring in Don Coryell and Bill Walsh here in the next few days. We're not good enough on that side of the ball. I just don't know what this fix. It seems emotional. They got issues. We know that. I don't really know what the point of all this is. That to me, I was actually shocked when I saw this last night.
Remember, they thought they had Cliff Kingsbury.
I know, and I get that. And now they wish they had him.
And the explanation was, it's hard to compete with Magic Johnson.
Yeah, right.
Because he gets on the phone with Cliff Kingsbury,
right.
And Cliff Kingsbury is going to Washington. But I was a believer, and you were a believer, Antonio Pierce should have a chance.
Yeah.
And he has had his chance.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling his chance is not going to last.
No, his chance is over, but I also feel like he got a raw deal a little bit. I mean, what chance did he really have here? That's I guess what I really
from the standpoint of the talent
on the football team. They did not put him in a spot, right? Horrible decision to wait to hold on to Devontae Adams, whatever. They should have just made moves in the offseason and started to go, hey, we're just starting fresh and let's rebuild. They kind of gave Antonio Pierce like, hey, we're going to kind of give you just a mediocre team with no quarterback and see what you can do here. And then if it all falls apart, we'll probably just blow it up, and then we'll blame you, and you'll be fired, and you'll have no job. No big deal. It's just a tough spot for them.
They miscalculated the quarterback position.
Yes.
They had a Gardner Minshew. They thought, I think, that
they
one of
get
the
Michael
top
Penix.
6 would be there at number 13.
Definitely.
And they'd have a young quarterback they could build around. Otherwise, they would have done something different if they would have known they were going to get shut out.
Yeah.
They usually pick 13 is good enough. If you got 6 quarterbacks that are due to go in the first round, usually pick 13 is a safe spot to get one of them. All right, Chargers-Browns, and this one is simple. Sell, sell, sell. The Cleveland Browns should sell. I was told yesterday reliably, not to be confused with my unreliable sources, I was told reliably by multiple sources the expectation is Zadarius Smith is going to be traded by the Browns to the Lions. Now, of course, somebody else could get involved and make him a better offer, but last night or today that deal's expected. It's been kind of percolating for a while. The Lions need an upgraded pass rusher since they lost Aiden Hutchinson. Zadarius Smith would like to go to the Lions. He can compete with the Packers and the Vikings, two of his prior teams.
Yeah.
The Browns need to look at every contract and ask themselves, if by the time we finally shed the ball and chain that is the Deshaun Watson deal, will this guy be here or not? And if he's not going to be here when we finally get out from under the Deshaun Watson contract, let's trade him. Let's get draft picks, because the only way to counter this massive, unprecedented cap charge they're going to take over the next 3 years or 2 years, or in theory 1 year, but it would completely wreck their cap if they took it all in 1 year, but like $170 million if they did it all in 1 year. Let's get draft picks, young, cheap players. That's the only way we're going to have a team. We got to get as many like mid-round picks as we can, and that's going to be our roster for the next 4 years, while we get past the after effects of the Deshaun Watson contract.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now, definitely, like, it's over. That officially ended the season for them yesterday. Chargers played really well. Really, the biggest story of the game, or to me, the defining little moments, were the first touchdown of the football game, where it throws it to Palmer down the right sideline. Denzel Ward blew the coverage. I don't know what he was doing. And then the 66-yard touchdown to Quentin Johnson was the same thing. I don't know if it was directly on Denzel Ward, but he was playing a different coverage than what everybody else was doing on the second one. And we know this Chargers defense is really good. You spot them a 13 or a 10-point lead, it's going to be hard to come back against them once you do that. They are physical. I like what Harbaugh is doing.
They're quietly putting together a playoff contender.
And you see, when they have Quentin Johnson, and they don't mean a lot on offense, but when they just have at least one guy to take a little pressure off of Justin Herbert that he can go to, they can be tough to stop that way. And they're running the football and all of that. But I'm with you in the Browns. It's over. It's sell. Who do they sell? Right? I know I've heard say Myles Garrett. You don't sell Myles Garrett.
You can't. The cap hit would be just not as bad, but it would be something that takes a bad situation, makes it much, much worse.
Yeah, and you need he's marquee. You can still keep him, and he's got great years in front of him.
The names I've heard, Zadarius Smith, obviously. David Njoku is one to watch. And when you look at his contract, it makes sense. Greg Newsome, there's been some
That's
chatter,
what I was
but
gonna say.
I
One of
poked
these
around.
corners-
The Newsome camp isn't aware of that. If that's in the
I
works,
would think
but
one of the they have three
you
corners.
just got to look at the whole roster.
That can happen, right? Exactly.
They're all
right.
interchangeable parts in a football machine, and they have to figure out how many of those parts they can remove and swap for draft picks that will give them the lifeblood of a team while they're dealing with $172 million that they still have to process on this disastrous Deshaun Watson.
The corners are Njoku. That's the ones I would say that look like a real possibility.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.